My daughter is a letterboxer. She loves letterboxing, and she is presently working on making a letterbox that has a first prize in particular and a connection to a book that I made when she was a little girl called Jeremiah Bunnyhopper's Scary Night. She's been begging me for a copy of this book that she could have as the prize for the first person to find her letterbox. The problem is I made this book in the days before digital times, and it requires a complete remake of the book in order for me to put it out again, which I promise I will. But in the meantime, I'm going to make a video of reading this book, which is a children's book, but I think big and small children might like it, so that she can at least put a link to that, and I can have a link to it on my website as well, so that everybody will be looking forward to the great Jeremiah Bunnyhopper's Scary Night. So there's the cover. There's the picture. Jeremiah Bunnyhopper's Scary Night. Now this book was a particularly special idea that I had. The title page says, Jeremiah Bunnyhopper's Scary Night. Story by Debonair Christopher at the time, Wilby Kovacs. Pictures by blank and Debonair Christopher. Because there's a place for the child to put their name, or you, if you're a big child and want to put pictures in here, you can put your name in there because you'll be one of the illustrators of the book. To brave little bunnies everywhere. This is your book. Color my pictures, then draw your own. Do your very best, and you'll have a book that is different from any other book in the world, and that you can be proud of for many years. Remember, if fear is your enemy, you can turn it into a friend. That's one way you can fight fear and win. Copyright 1992 by Debonair Christopher, all rights reserved, manufactured in the United States of America. Just around the corner and not far away, under the roots of the old cottonwood tree, there lives a little brown rabbit named Jeremiah Bunnyhopper. This is the copying version. It's got separate pages for each side of the page. If you saw Jeremiah Bunnyhopper, you would know him at once because he has one ear that droops down over his shoulder and will not stand up straight with the other. There's Jeremiah. Besides that, Jeremiah does not hop as all his family and friends do. He would much rather skip. Draw a picture. There's a box there for you to draw a picture of Jeremiah skippity hopping. While all the other bunnies are hop, hop, hopping around, Jeremiah skippity hops and hoppity skips all over the forest. Grandfather Bunnyhopper disapproves most severely. Harum-scarum rabbit, he grumbles. By the time I was your age, I had learned to hop in a proper and dignified manner. But Mama always says, you must be your own bunny, Jeremiah, and not try to be anyone else. Since skippity hopping is a very difficult thing to do in a perfectly straight line, Jeremiah seldom wins any races either. Sometimes his friends get mad or make fun of him. Then Jeremiah's straight ear droops as low as his crooked one. Here's a place for you to draw a picture of Jeremiah losing a race, or draw the way his face looks when his friends make fun of him. But Miss Parsnip, his teacher, tells his class bunnies to be kind. Jeremiah's hop is full of skipping because his heart is full of joy, she tells them. And Jeremiah's merry, toothy grin comes back, and you can draw a picture of how Jeremiah's face looks now. Now, Jeremiah loves adventures more than anything in the whole wide world, even more than he loves Brussels sprouts, and Jeremiah loves Brussels sprouts. In fact, one day, Jeremiah went into Mrs. Wickett's vegetable garden right in broad daylight just to get some Brussels sprouts. He had just eaten one and found that they were even more scrumptious than he had thought they would be. You can draw Jeremiah sneaking in the garden. When who should come upon him but Mrs. Wickett's huge German shepherd, Sarge. Sarge gave a tremendous bark, and poor Jeremiah ran back to the safety of the old cottonwood tree so fast his feet hardly touched the ground, and he choked on his last bite of Brussels sprout besides. My, said his friend Rita Rabbit admiringly, I never saw you run so fast, Jeremiah. Why were you running? When Jeremiah had stopped coughing, he said, Oh, it was nothing. I was just teasing Mrs. Wickett's dog, Sarge. Rita's eyes opened wide. Teasing Sarge? But weren't you scared? Not me, said Jeremiah. I'm not scared of anything. Another day, Jeremiah was exploring a fallen log along the riverbank. At the far end of it, out over the water, some little green shoots were growing, and Jeremiah thought they looked yummy. So he set out toward them. But just as he finally reached the end of the log, Some of the rotted wood gave way, and into the river he fell with a great splash. Draw Jeremiah falling into the river. The current carried him, gulping and sputtering, for quite a way before he managed to catch himself in some river weeds and get to shore. At home, Mama Bunnyhopper dried him off and set him before the fire with a cup of hot parsley tea. I have to make sure I get it in there. There we go. There's Mama setting him before the fire. Jeremiah Bunnyhopper, you have more adventures than any 3 rabbits I ever knew, she said. Sometimes I worry about you. Jeremiah sneezed. I'm not afraid of anything, he said. But Jeremiah had a secret. He really was afraid of one thing. He was afraid of the dark. Now, for a rabbit to be afraid of the dark is a very difficult thing. Most rabbits like to go out at night. They have parties and dance in the moonlight and play hide-and-seek and shadow tag. Jeremiah was already teased enough for his droopy ear and his skippity-hopping, and he did not want anyone to know that he was afraid of the dark. So he made a lot of excuses. He was too tired to play tonight, or he thought he ought to stay home with his baby sister and let Mama go out, or he just wasn't feeling well. But he knew that someday someone was going to find out his secret, and deep inside he felt so miserable and ashamed. Draw Jeremiah's sad face looking out the window at the other bunnies playing. One afternoon Jeremiah was wandering through the forest, hoppity-skip, skippity-hop, when he came to a great sunny meadow. He stopped beneath a huckleberry bush, his pink nose twitching and sniffing as fast as it could. He had not seen this meadow before. It was the best meadow a bunny could imagine, all buttercups and butterflies, swooping swallows and delicious dandelions. Draw the meadow that Jeremiah sees. When he had sniffed enough to be sure there was no danger in the meadow, Jeremiah hopped to the nearest clump of dandelions and tried one. It was the best dandelion he'd ever tasted. He finished them and moved on to some buttercups and then some wild carrots. After that there was a hollow log that must be explored, and then a brightly colored butterfly to chase, and you can draw Jeremiah enjoying the meadow. By the time he grew tired of playing tag with the butterfly and looked around, Jeremiah realized with a sudden chill that the sun had disappeared behind the trees. The shadows were very long, and in the edge of the woods it was almost dark. Bless my whiskers, he thought. I'd better hurry home. He looked around. Which way was home? He tried to retrace his steps. Now, here's the hollow log, I think. Or was it that one? Jeremiah almost began to cry. Then he remembered that he had come into the meadow from under a huckleberry bush. He searched along the edge of the forest, and soon he came to a clump of huckleberry bushes. Quick as a wink, he skipped under them and began to hurry home. But everything looked strange. These were not the same huckleberry bushes. Jeremiah was lost. And it was dark. Above his head there was a sudden whir of wings and a loud screech. Draw how scared Jeremiah is now. Jeremiah huddled under a bush and began to shiver. How was he ever going to get home? Should he just hide and wait for morning? But Mama would worry. And how could he stay in this scary place? Suddenly, from quite nearby, there was a shuffling, grumbling, stomping sound. Jeremiah was so frightened he couldn't even shiver. The sound came closer and closer, and then Jeremiah looked up and saw a huge, dark, hairy shape with a snuffling nose and long teeth that shone in the moonlight, pushing its way right into his bush. Draw what Jeremiah thinks he sees. Jeremiah froze for a second, and then he turned and ran as he had never run in his life. He didn't know where he was going, but the huge shape came crashing after him, so he just ran and ran and ran, gasping and sobbing. But the tears in his eyes blinded him, and suddenly he tripped over a root and fell flat on his nose. Jeremiah knew he could not run any farther. He heard the crashing stop behind him and waited. Maybe that thing wanted to eat him up. He felt breath on his back, and then big paws with long, sharp claws picked him up and turned him around and set him gently on his feet. "Poor little bunny," said a big, deep voice. "Are you hurt? I followed you to tell you I'm sorry I scared you. I only wanted some huckleberries." Now draw what Jeremiah really sees. Jeremiah gulped and wiped at his tears with the back of one paw. Who are you?" "Why, I'm just old Barney Bear, and I'm very pleased to meet you. Who are you? I don't think I've seen you in this part of the forest before." I'm Jeremiah Bunnyhopper, and I'm lost," said Jeremiah. "Lost," said Barney. "Well, we'll soon get you home. Can you tell me where you live?" Barney Bear seemed to know just where the old cottonwood tree was, and they set out side by side, Jeremiah very quiet and feeling ashamed of himself. Finally, he couldn't stand it any longer, and he blurted out, "I'll bet you're not afraid of anything. I wish I was a great big growly bear." Barney Bear chuckled, a deep rumble that began in his chest and spread outward until his shoulders shook. "When I was a much bigger cub than you are, I was terrified of bees." "You afraid of bees?" cried Jeremiah in amazement. Barney laughing and Jeremiah surprised. "Yes, sir. My friends and my sister laughed and laughed at me. Even my mother didn't quite know what to do with me. 'Imagine a bear afraid of bees,' she would say. 'You must have your honey, my dear.' But I couldn't help it. I didn't want my nose to be stung." "What did you do?" "For a long time I didn't do anything. I just went around being afraid of bees and feeling miserable, especially when my friends would eat great gooey globs of honey." Barney licked his lips. "What would you do?" "Well, I don't know," said Jeremiah. "I guess you could just not eat honey." "That's one choice," agreed Barney Bear. "Or you could just get stung." "Many bears do," Barney nodded. Draw the different choices Barney could make. Suddenly Jeremiah stopped. "I wonder, could you make friends with bees?" Barney's chuckle shook him again. "A very clever idea," he said, "and that's just what I did." "You did?" Jeremiah laughed in delight, imagining the bees getting out of the way so Barney could have some of their extra honey. The two walked on in silence for a while. At last Jeremiah asked, "Barney Bear, do you suppose, do you think a person could make friends with darkness?" Barney looked around at the nighttime forest. "Well, perhaps. How would you begin?" Jeremiah looked around too. They were getting close to his home. "I'd have to think of things to like about the darkness," he said doubtfully. "Let me see. There's moonlight. I do like the moon. And crickets chirping. And my favorite pillow." He looked up at the big bear walking along beside him and grinned. "I bet I could do it. I made friends with you, didn't I?" They laughed together. "So you did," said Barney. "So you did." Last of all, there's a big box. What are you afraid of? Could you make friends with it? How? Draw a picture of you making friends with what scares you. When this comes out again, it will come out with its companion book for parents. You can help your child fight fear and win. Hope you've enjoyed it. Feel free to go to my website at www.debonaire.com. That's DEBBONNAIRE. Thank you. Have a good day, and make friends with your fear.